Okay, what's going on, guys? I wanted to make this video for a few reasons. One being that I've been on the fence about this whole, content producing and, continuously putting content out. And like I've just been on this struggle with, do I do it or not? And it's just come down to a few things. Mainly, the main thing is like, how much is my personal brand going to benefit me? And I know it's beneficial, right? But then it's like, at what level, should I be taking it? And the more I look into it, and the more I see the ability that people have, gotten from building up these personal brands and using it to their advantage is like, okay, it's pretty crazy. And so then it gets me back thinking like, okay, maybe I should still. And yeah, like with my business, I'm on this whole, teeter-totter thought of, should I just be focusing on my business and going out and, developing? And then I'm like, but isn't this part of developing my business? Because over time, as my following grows, my, authority grows and the ability to charge more grows and my influence grows, because obviously I'm reaching out to more people, right? And I have a higher perceived value when I build it more. So I've been on this huge teeter-totter about it. And the other big thing that I've kind of had going on within my internally, but also behind the scenes, I guess, because obviously I haven't been recording it. And the reason I haven't been recording it is because I've kind of been having these shifts of motivation and what's driving me. Because obviously I was, doing this 100-day plan thing that, I just like almost lost. It wasn't that I lost motivation to keep going, because like, I haven't really stopped for a day I haven't really stopped pushing myself to move forward. And it's funny because it's like, I feel, having set that expectations out on social media, out on my personal brand, that I was going to do this 100-day plan. It almost feels like I wasn't, because then I wasn't paying 100% attention to it. But then I got thinking, I'm like, should you be as emotional as you are to it? Because ultimately why you put it out on social media was to keep yourself accountable, to drive yourself to do it further. But then it got me thinking that, well, that's not driving me, something else is driving me now. So is it something that I still want to pursue? And because ultimately why I put, that consequence up of the $2,000 was basically to drive me, right? It was to drive me. And this whole notion of it. And then, I had some great wisdom, come into my life about how goals shouldn't be as strict deadlines, but rather ways to measure your progress. And it came across like, maybe 25 days into the 100-day plan. And that really stuck with me. And then it kind of like really made me go flat with the whole 100-day thing, because it kind of shifted my perspective on it. In the meantime, that a lot of things were shifting as I was doing this 100-day plan. And so my life was a lot different from when I first started this 100-day plan. So the 100-day plan wasn't in line with what my life is. So it's like, do I try to keep it in line with what my 100-day plan is because this is what I set out to do? Or do I adapt and keep my emotion away from it? And ultimately, I've kept my emotion away from it and be like, you know what? People can look at it as I don't follow through and I don't finish things. Sure, right? And I'll let people think that if they want. But ultimately, it's, am I still showing up to what I'm doing, right? And it's like, I'm showing up to build my business, right? I'm going out and networking. I'm finding people to as clients. I'm going out and doing these seminars. And even that, like we've already, we built this whole process up to do the seminars, and then we figured out the seminars wasn't the best way to reach people. And I'm staying as emotionless as possible to whatever we need to do to actually make things happen. And now we're just making the shift from, you know, being 100% real estate niche focused to now pulling ourselves back and being like, real estate might not be the best to start in. Not that, because we have great plans for it, and I still think real estate is going to be a great opportunity for us, but it's like maybe there's 1 or 2 steps before actually hopping into real estate. And it's just saying, you know, we've devoted all this time to building this up and to going out and getting our first couple clients with it, right? But it's like maybe we also need to be working on something at the same time to be ensuring our success. And it's just the really the underlying theme of what a lot of this has happened literally over this last month. Yeah, probably about a month now, is this whole idea of keeping your emotion over here and your logic and your decision making in front of you when you're talking business. And I think a lot of people get that mixed up and forget to pull their emotion and set it aside when they're thinking about business decisions and making changes and adapting to what makes sense, right? Not what you've devoted your time and emotion and got caught up in, because that might not be the best move for tomorrow now, right? And I think ultimately there's a fine line between that, and if you're continuing to flip-flop, that's another thing, and you're not getting anywhere, that's another thing, right? And that's why I think goals now, that I got that kind of wisdom and mentality in my head, that goals are to be there to measure, not as a strict deadline. And I really think that's powerful. And so, because life changes, right? And I was listening to something that Jeff Bezos said. Jeff Bezos said, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have to be very stingent and stern about a lot of stuff. We also have to be flexible about a lot of stuff. And it's playing with those interchangeably and knowing when to be stern about it and when to be flexible, right? And what he was talking about is your vision and your long term. Like, you got to be strict and stern and very very concrete about that, because you know what your vision is, right? But how you get there, you need to be flexible. You know, how you started and took those first 5 steps is going to be different than how you take those next 10, 15, 20 steps, and then after those steps is going to be different for the next set of steps, right? And so it's understanding that, and always be willing to change around the circumstances that are put up, the opportunities that are open, the knowledge that you come in. Because, you know, I could get knowledge tomorrow and insight tomorrow that's going to change my thinking from what I was just thinking yesterday, right? And so it's understanding that and always playing with and always being, you know, yourself. It's weird to describe, like, you know, intuition, I guess, right? And always having that intuition and confidence in yourself that you're going to make that right decision, and not always overthinking, like, oh, but like, this is how I did this, and this is what I said I was going to do, right? Like, yeah, you know, sometimes there's a time and place that you shouldn't, you know, fall out from what you said you're going to do. But I think more and more it's just understanding that being as flexible as possible, emotionless as possible in your decision making. So with that, I've kind of got back to the idea that I want to be, you know, continuing to push out content, because I think from seeing a couple people doing it here, it's going to actually benefit me in the long run. Especially, this is going to be on YouTube. And I think that on YouTube, I'm going to try, maybe not right away, because ultimately in my mind, I do want to get some better recording equipment. So maybe not right away, but I definitely want to start putting out more content on YouTube that's focused on the actual business of things and building up my knowledge base on what I'm doing in my business and how I'm approaching clients and how we're dealing with clients, and, you know, Facebook and Google AdWords, what we're doing with those, all of that, and being more directed with my actual, you know, career of things in business that we're trying to build, and the decisions we make. So this is kind of that first video on what's going on, And from here, you know, I think just as things ramp up, because we had some big, we're shifting things around a lot in the business right now, and I love it, because it's just like each day it just gets a little clearer between my partner and I, and with, you know, clarity comes shifts, small little shifts along the way that is slowly crafting how we're going to be internally and ultimately how we're going to act externally. And so the big one that we just kind of had was, you know, establishing our system that we need to put in place now, even before we have a huge pipeline of clients, which hopefully in these next couple of weeks, though, that pipeline is going to be moving, and acting as if we do already have a pipeline of clients, that so when we do get them, our system is already in place and working and functioning well between us, that there's not going to be a huge interruption when all this workflow comes through the door. We're already used to it. And what that looks like is putting myself out there more. And this is where it comes in, is like, now that I've really started to establish myself as, this is almost part of my duty, is to put my face out there more and be more of the face of the brand, and create that higher perceived value for us, because ultimately that's going to translate into having power and people coming to us eventually. And that's the idea of it, right? So this is a part of it, and the selling and the networking and the leadership. So those kind of four, the personal brand, the selling, the networking, and leadership, is what I really need to be locking down on, and that's what I really want to pivot into my personal brand and really show and provide value in those areas. That's ultimately what I'm going to be displaying. So that's kind of what you can expect from these videos moving forward, and I hope that I can get some good questions and common uneducated topics. That was a weird way to say it, but basically things that people are unclear of often when they're hopping into this space, and I can talk on those and build value and hopefully start to create a following through that. So yeah, I hope, you know, I'll just kind of put these out as I please. I don't want to commit myself to anything, but I just want to make sure that I have these kind of expectations set with myself and don't feel pressured, because I think that's the worst thing, is when you feel pressured. You've created this made up pressure that really doesn't need to be there, right? Unless it has to be, sure, it's another thing, but with a circumstance like this, it doesn't. It should flow naturally and really have your natural and authentic side, and that's what I want to display through these videos. So till next time, guys, we'll be chatting.